What if the most chilling war films were not about the battles, but about the minds that broke behind them? The 70s produced a wave of psychological war thrillers that blurred sanity and duty, films buried under decades of louder blockbusters. These are stories of paranoia madness and moral decay. Prepare to step into a world where the real enemy hides inside the human mind. Number 10. The Ninth Configuration, 1980. Once dismissed as too strange for its own good, The Ninth Configuration remains one of the boldest war-related psychological thrillers ever made. Directed by William Peter Blatty, the same mind behind The Exorcist, it unfolds inside a Gothic castle that doubles as a secret military asylum. Soldiers, once heroes of Vietnam, now wander its haunted halls, broken by guilt and delusion. The story centers on Colonel Kane, a calm new psychiatrist who seems too serene for a man in charge of madness. Beneath his composed manner lies a mystery. Is he truly the doctor, or one of the patients pretending to be sane? The castle becomes a surreal battleground of faith and reason. A man dressed as Superman rehearses Shakespeare on the ceiling. Another plans to stage Hamlet with dogs. Yet every absurd scene masks a deep wound left by war. The film baffled critics. Audiences expecting a traditional thriller found themselves trapped in philosophical riddles about God guilt and redemption. The studio did not know how to sell it. Too intelligent for horror, too strange for drama, it vanished almost as soon as it appeared. Some theaters pulled it after a single week. Years later, it resurfaced on late-night television. Viewers began whispering that it was not insanity at all, but an allegory for America's moral collapse after Vietnam. In that quiet madness lay the truth of the age. The Ninth Configuration proved that sometimes war follows you home, and sanity is just another casualty. Number 9. Twilight's Last Gleaming, 1977. When it premiered, Twilight's Last Gleaming was labeled too political, too paranoid, and too close to the bone. Directed by Robert Aldrich, it turned a simple hostage thriller into a nightmarish reflection on government secrecy. Burt Lancaster plays General Lawrence Dell, a rogue Air Force officer who seizes control of a nuclear missile silo. But his real weapon is the truth. Inside the bunker, Dell demands that the U.S. government broadcast a classified document admitting the Vietnam War was fought for cynical political reasons. Above-ground generals debate whether to negotiate or destroy him. The film unfolds across split screens, showing the frantic tension inside the Pentagon, while Dell argues with his conscience below. Censors and studio executives panicked. The film's anti-government tone clashed with post-Watergate sensitivities. Military officials refused to cooperate, and several countries delayed release, fearing it would reignite anti-American sentiment. In some theaters, reels mysteriously disappeared, replaced by heavily edited versions that removed references to Vietnam. Audiences were unsettled. It did not feel like fiction, but confession. Critics were divided between calling it dangerous propaganda or a masterpiece of moral reckoning. Aldrich himself said he wanted to force America to look in the mirror, even if it hated what it saw. Over time, Twilight's Last Gleaming became a cult relic, screened in universities and underground film clubs. Decades later, its warning feels prophetic. When governments hide the truth, madness becomes national policy. In a decade defined by cynicism, Aldrich's film turned the Cold War into a psychological autopsy of power itself. Number 8. The Shout, 1978. Few films capture the sound of insanity like The Shout. Based on a story by Robert Graves, this British thriller transformed the quiet English countryside into a battlefield of minds. John Hurt plays a meek composer studying the sounds of nature, while Alan Bates arrives as a mysterious wanderer claiming he can kill with his voice. What begins as polite conversation turns into spiritual warfare. Bates insists he learned the deadly shout from Aboriginal mystics during wartime exile. When he demonstrates it, the wind freezes the sheep scatter, and reality itself seems to crack. The war here is not fought with guns, but with sound, guilt, and power. Audiences were unsure what they had witnessed. Was it supernatural? Was the stranger real? The British Board of Film Classification reportedly debated whether to label it horror or psychological drama. Critics praised its haunting tone, but theaters struggled to market it. A film about war trauma that never shows war, only its echo. Behind the scenes, production faced eerie coincidences. Electrical failures plagued the set during sound recording sessions. Some crew members swore the scream used in the film carried an unsettling frequency that made them dizzy. Whether rumor or fact, the myth helped the film's legend grow. The shout won a Grand Prix at Cannes, yet disappeared soon after. Its strange rhythm did not fit commercial cinema. Today, it survives as an atmospheric puzzle about memory madness and the voice of guilt. The real terror was never the shout itself, but the silence that followed. Number 7. The Human Factor, 1979. When Otto Preminger released The Human Factor, it confused both critics and audiences. The film looked like a spy thriller, but moved like a confession. Adapted from Graham Greene's novel, it tells the story of Maurice Castle, a mild British intelligence officer who hides a devastating secret. He is passing information to the Soviets not for ideology but for love. Castle's wife once saved him from death in apartheid South Africa. In return, he risks everything to protect her. The suspense comes not from chases or shootouts, but from the suffocating dread of discovery. Each phone call, each coded message, each quiet moment at home becomes a test of loyalty. The film was haunted by its own creation. Preminger was nearly 80 and struggling to finish his career with meaning. The studio forced budget cuts that stripped away the grandeur he wanted. Some insiders whispered that Greene himself hated the final script for softening his political anger. British intelligence reportedly discouraged any public cooperation, fearing that it reflected real Cold War leaks. At release, it bombed. Viewers expected Bond-like action, and instead got stillness, moral tension, and melancholy. Yet, in hindsight, it feels visionary. Long before modern spy dramas explored divided loyalties, The Human Factor understood that betrayal begins in the heart, not the battlefield. Today it stands as one of Preminger's most misunderstood works, a slow, burning tragedy about a man torn between duty and conscience. In its quiet despair lies the war that never ends, the war inside. Number 6. The Odessa File, 1974. Based on Frederick Forsyth's novel, The Odessa File captured the paranoia of post-war Europe like few films of its era. Directed by Ronald Neame and starring Jon Voight, it follows a German journalist who uncovers a secret network of ex-Nazis preparing for resurgence under the code name Odessa. The film begins with a suicide note from a Holocaust survivor. Inside is a list of names and a plea for justice. The reporter's obsession pulls him into a labyrinth of false identities and government conspiracies. The tension grows as he realizes the network reaches deep into modern institutions. The enemy is not gone merely hidden in plain sight. Production faced threats from extremist groups who accused the film of slander. Filming locations in Germany were switched without notice after anonymous calls warned of violence. Some archives refused cooperation, claiming national image concerns. Critics in West Germany dismissed it as fiction, but whispers circulated that Forsyth's source material was uncomfortably close to fact. Audiences found it gripping, but unsettling. It was not a hero's tale, but a moral puzzle. The film's gritty tone and absence of glamour contrasted sharply with the sleek espionage of the time. Jon Voight's performance of a man slowly consumed by obsession earned quiet praise, though box office success remained elusive. Over decades, The Odessa File aged like a warning. It predicted how truth can be buried beneath bureaucracy and fear. In every shadowed corridor, the ghosts of war still wait. It is not just a thriller, it is a mirror of denial. Number 5. Cross of Iron, 1977. Sam Peckinpah's Cross of Iron stands as one of the grimmest anti-war films ever made. At first glance, it looks like a standard World War II story. But beneath its explosions and blood lies a study of power madness and masculinity, collapsing under moral decay. Set on the Eastern Front, it follows Sergeant Steiner, played by James Coburn, a weary soldier who despises authority, yet keeps fighting because he knows nothing else. When a pompous Prussian officer arrives chasing glory, conflict erupts within their ranks. The real war becomes personal pride versus survival. Peckinpah's direction pushed every limit. Filming in Yugoslavia, he fought daily with producers over money, weather, and censorship. Crew members fled after explosive accidents on set. Peckinpah himself suffered breakdowns fueled by exhaustion and frustration. Yet, from the chaos emerged poetry in mud and blood. The film was heavily edited in some regions. Its brutal realism clashed with mainstream expectations. The U.S. distributors cut several minutes of psychological sequences, showing soldiers losing grip on sanity. German critics called it both courageous and shameful. For Peckinpah, it was his last masterpiece before his career unraveled. Over time, Cross of Iron became revered by filmmakers from Tarantino to Scorsese. They saw in it a raw, unfiltered vision of men devoured by systems they could not escape. Peckinpah's message was clear: the Iron Cross is not an honor, it is a wound. And like every true psychological war story, its scars never fade. Number 4. The Boys from Brazil, 1978. When The Boys from Brazil arrived, it divided audiences between fascination and disbelief. Directed by Franklin J. Schaffner, the same visionary who made Planet of the Apes, it dared to ask what would happen if the horrors of the past refused to die. The film combined Cold War paranoia with Nazi science fiction and created one of the strangest psychological thrillers of the decade. Gregory Peck shocked viewers by playing Dr. Joseph Mengele, the real-life Nazi war criminal hiding in South America. His plan was beyond madness. He had cloned Adolf Hitler dozens of times, placing the boys with carefully chosen families to recreate the dictator's childhood. Laurence Olivier played the aging Nazi hunter, who begins to suspect that history is repeating itself in flesh and blood. When it opened, the film caused outrage. Some critics condemned it as tasteless for turning real war crimes into entertainment. Others admired its audacity and eerie plausibility. Newspapers across Europe questioned whether such experiments were truly impossible. The studio faced backlash in Germany, in parts of South America, where protests broke out over its subject matter. Behind the scenes, Peck reportedly struggled with playing such evil. Crew members recalled his discomfort filming scenes of cruelty. Yet that tension made the performance unforgettable. The man once known for Atticus Finch now embodied pure moral rot. The Boys from Brazil faded from mainstream memory, but its DNA lingers in every modern thriller about cloning ethics and political manipulation. It warned that monsters never vanish, they reinvent themselves. The war may end, but obsession with power lives on. Number 3. The Eagle Has Landed, 1976. At first glance, The Eagle Has Landed seems like a straightforward wartime adventure. But beneath its action beats lies a quiet meditation on loyalty, identity, and the futility of orders. Directed by John Sturges and based on Jack Higgins' novel, it imagines a daring Nazi plot to kidnap Winston Churchill from an English village. Michael Caine plays Colonel Steiner, a German paratrooper who despises Hitler yet follows duty. Donald Sutherland plays Liam Devlin, a charming Irish spy whose allegiance is more poetic than political. What could have been a pulp story becomes a study of men trapped in moral contradictions. They know the mission is hopeless, yet proceed because the machine of war demands it. The film faced controversy long before release. British tabloids accused it of glorifying German soldiers. Veterans groups protested the idea of sympathetic Nazis on screen. Sturges defended it as a human story, not propaganda. Studio executives feared boycotts, but the film pressed forward. Filming was plagued by tension. Caine refused to deliver lines he found unrealistic. Sutherland rewrote dialogue to make Devlin more philosophical. Sturges nearly quit mid-production after clashes over editing, but somehow the chaos turned into art. The finished film balanced suspense with fatalism like a chess game where every move is doomed. Audiences in America admired its complexity. In Europe, reactions were mixed. Yet today it stands as a rare wartime thriller that questions obedience instead of celebrating it. The Eagle Has Landed reminds us that courage can exist even on the wrong side, and that the line between soldier and victim is often paper thin. Number 2. The Marathon Man, 1976. Few thrillers captured paranoia like The Marathon Man. Directed by John Schlesinger and written by William Goldman, it turned post-war trauma into psychological terror. Dustin Hoffman stars as Thomas Babe Levy, a graduate student unknowingly caught in a web of espionage involving stolen Nazi diamonds and a sadistic war criminal hiding in America. Laurence Olivier returns again as the villain, this time playing Dr. Christian Sell, a former concentration camp dentist whose interrogation methods are unforgettable. The infamous question, "Is it safe?" became a cultural scar burned into cinema history. Yet beneath the surface of torture and chase sequences lies a study of inherited fear. Babe's father was a victim of the McCarthy witch hunts. The sins of the past continue to torment the next generation. Production itself mirrored that anxiety. Hoffman's method acting pushed him to physical collapse. Olivier, suffering from illness, barely endured the intensity of filming. Crew members recalled the tension on set feeling as if the story's madness had infected everyone involved. The Motion Picture Association debated rating restrictions because of its unrelenting dread. The film divided critics. Some hailed it as genius, others called it cruel, but audiences could not look away. The Marathon Man embodied the 70s fear of unseen power and historical guilt lurking beneath modern comfort. Over time, its legacy deepened. Every whisper of conspiracy, every image of hidden trauma owes something to its brutal honesty. The film showed that the aftermath of war does not end with peace treaties. It lives on in memory, in paranoia, in every unanswered question of safety. Number 1. The Deer Hunter, 1978. The Deer Hunter is not just a war film, it is a psychological wound captured on celluloid. Directed by Michael Cimino, it begins in the steel towns of Pennsylvania, where three friends share laughter, love, and dreams before being drafted into the Vietnam War. What follows is a descent into chaos that changed American cinema forever. Robert De Niro plays Michael the stoic hunter, whose precision and silence conceal inner turmoil. Christopher Walken delivers a haunting performance as Nick, whose spirit is slowly broken by captivity and Russian roulette. John Savage portrays Stephen, who loses more than limbs, he loses faith. Their shared trauma becomes the real battlefield, one that stretches far beyond Saigon. When it premiered, The Deer Hunter shocked both critics and politicians. The Russian roulette scenes ignited fury. Some accused the film of inventing cruelty that never happened. Others insisted it represented the mental torture of soldiers trapped between life and death. In several Asian countries, screenings were banned over claims of cultural insensitivity. Protests erupted outside theaters demanding its removal. Behind the camera, the chaos mirrored the story. Cimino pushed his actors to extremes, filming in freezing conditions and real jungles. Crew members described emotional exhaustion, yet the results were undeniable. The film won 5 Academy Awards, including Best Picture and Best Director. Still, Cimino's perfectionism destroyed his next project, Heaven's Gate, leading studios to label him reckless. Over time, The Deer Hunter transcended its controversy. It became a document of lost innocence. The war here is not about politics, but about what survival costs the soul. Its closing moment, friends broken yet singing softly around a table, captures the silence after every battle. Not victory, not defeat, only emptiness. In that silence, the real war never ends. Each of these films peeled back the uniform to reveal the mind beneath it. They showed that fear, propaganda, and duty all fracture under pressure. So, which of these forgotten psychological war thrillers shocked you the most? Leave your answer below, share your thoughts, and subscribe for more hidden masterpieces that cinema tried to bury, but history refuses to forget.